Hello everybody, a very warm welcome back to MEC-TEC. Now we're back out on the driveway and we're working on the old cab today. Hasn't been on the channel for a while, I know, but it's just clocked 210,000 miles. It is going up pretty rapidly on the mileage now, and it does need a little bit of TLC. So there are a few jobs we're going to be doing on the cab, dotting around here and there, doing different bits and bobs. That is a really nice Fiat 500 I Bath just drove past then, if you wondered what that noise was. So the main or first job I want to get sorted out is the near side front wheel bearing. It has gone again. It's done about 100 and odd thousand since I did the last front wheel bearings, and that side gets the brunt of it because that's the side where you're doing U-turns and whatever else that gets the most pressure and whatever else when you're in London. So we're going to replace the near side front wheel bearing. I know I've done a video on that before, so I'm not going to go into mega detail on it, but we're going to do that. I need to put some new wiper blades on. I need to sort out the fuel leak on the back of it again. For whatever reason, the tank is still leaking from the top. I don't know why, so I need to take the tank back out again and have a look at that and find out what's going on with that and see if we can sort that out again. What else is there? Oh, driver's side window switch has fallen apart basically, so I need to fit a new driver's side window switch. And if we get time, I've actually got a couple of nice upgraded door speakers that I want to put in it as well. So that's going to be another little job we'll do. More of an upgrade than a maintenance thing, I know. And I need to check when it was last serviced, because I'm not 100% sure on the mileage when I last serviced it, and I want to check that I'm not overdue on that as well. So we have got a fair few bits to be getting on with on it. It is doing a sterling service, but it just needs a little bit of TLC. So without further ado, let's crack on, get an inside front wheel off, get this new bearing fitted, and hopefully that'll get rid of my horrible droning noise. Rightio, with the wheel now off, as you can see, we've got our disc rotor, so I should say if you're in America, and our brake caliper. Now we need to take the brake caliper off, obviously, to get this hub and disc assembly off. It's held on the back there with two 17 mils, one there and one down the bottom there, which you can't see. Basically where my finger is there, you can just about see it, there we go. So there are two 17 mils, take that off, then you have to pop this dust cover off the middle of this. You get a little pry bar and might bit both sides, work it out, and it'll pop off and land on you and cover you in grease. Because I'm doing this one-handed, holding the camera, so it's coming. I actually have had this off recently because I'd repacked this bearing in the hope it would quieten it down, but it hasn't. So there you go. Now inside there, if I dig around in this mountain of grease that I put in it, there is a split pin with a castle washer over the top, or a castle cap if you want to call it that. I've done a fairly in-depth video on this doing wheel bearings before, actually when we was at our old house, so well over, in fact I looked it up on the YouTube videos. I think it was about 2.5 years ago. It was quite a long while ago. So you can see there now there's a split pin in there. You need to straighten that end of it up, pull that through, get the washer off the top or the cap, and then that will allow you to undo the hub nut itself and obviously get the whole lot off. So let me get this caliper off. Need to get a rag as well because I'm going to get covered in rubbish otherwise. I'll get the caliper off, get the hub off, and then we'll have a look at the bearing race and whatever else once I get it apart. Right, I had just recorded a section showing me taking this last bit of this off, but unfortunately the microphone decided to disconnect, which stopped it recording. So I have to show you from where I'm at now. Obviously I've got our bearing, old bearing front and rear halves out there. Now the way that you get out the rear half of the bearing and the seal easily is by rethreading on the washer and the nut back onto the front of this hub with no front bearing in it. And when you pull the hub off, if you give it a bit of a jolt, it jolts off that rear seal with it. And that way it allows you to just pull it all off in one go. The rubber seal, the rear seal and the rear bearing will be left hanging on the hub there, and then obviously all you've got left in the hub itself is the two races. So that's the easiest way to get that apart. These are the bearings I've got, which are they're branded MEC-TEC, but they're Koyo bearings, which I'm done a bit of research, and they seem to be quite a good brand of bearing. They're Japanese, so they are quite a well made bearing supposedly. The genuine ones that came out, the rear one is an SKF and the front one is a Ball & Beck, and that will come out of one genuine kit from LEVC. So they've done about 100,000 miles, so they haven't done bad really, considering the abuse they get put through, and me going around roundabouts and things like that. So next step now is going to be, I'm going to give this hub a bit of a clean up, get all the old grease out of it, and as soon as I've done that I'll come back to you and we'll get these old bearing races knocked out, see what sort of state they're in, if we can see any witness marks or anything. If we can't, we'll just make sure the new ones are the right size and replace it anyway, because I'm not coming this far and then not replacing them. So let's crack on. Right, if you look inside there, you can see that rear race around this section here is very dark and quite sort of scored. So it's definitely on its way out, that by the looks of it. The race has obviously got some witness marks of wear and score marks, as you can see there. Not horrendous, but enough to make it drone. The front one I don't think is far behind it, to be honest with you. You can see it's got like a dark patch around it where it's obviously got hot at some point. Right, I've knocked out the old bearing races, as you can see just there. Actually no, it's the new one, so I lie, that's the new one. There's the old ones. There's the old front one, not looking too terrible, but enough to be noisy. And where's my old rear? What have I done with it? Don't know. Got to make sure I don't put the old ones back on again. Basically I've got my bearing press or punch kit out. You get different sized discs in it which fit into your races, and obviously that then allows you to bang that in. You put this on the end of the this adapter here, little bolt goes through the middle of it just to hold it in place, and then that obviously allows you to hammer those in, hopefully fairly square. And nut on the end of this, or the thread on the end of this adapter is a bit wafty, so sometimes it might just be that you don't have to worry about it. Don't worry about the nut, it's not going to go anywhere because you're banging against it anyway. So what did I do with the other? I want to make sure I've definitely got the two new ones here. I'm pretty sure I have because they look clean, but actually no, that is the old one. It says Mexico and it says SKF on the back. The new one for that one is still on the bearing. There we go. I was going doolally there, but yeah, there is a bit of wear on these, as you'd expect from how long they've been in the cab. And just praying that that's what's noisy. I'm assuming it's probably going to be the rollers that are noisy rather than the races, but I don't know for sure. They just hammer out. I just used a metal punch to hammer them out. Just a little one of those. Get it on the edge of the inside of the race and just knock it out evenly, side by side, bit by bit. And that obviously gets that out. And literally is a reverse now of taking the old ones out, putting the new ones in. So, as I say, get that in your hub there, nice and square. Get your adapter in there, like that, and gradually just tap it back in again. And when you hear the noise change, you know that it's bottomed out. Hear that noise change? That means it's bottomed out. Just make double sure I put the right one back in. Yeah, I have. That's good. Right, there's that. It's as easy as that. That's our rear race in. That's all flat against the inside of that hub there. There's no gap, which is obviously what you want. You want it to be as straight and true as you possibly can, and you want it to go in as straight and true as you possibly can, because you don't want to obviously warp it in any way, because the bearing has got to run on that race. It's definitely all the way back in. So it does pay to have maybe some of these bearing race tools if you're going to be doing these, because it makes sure it aids it going in dead straight, which, as I say, is what you want. Because if it goes in crooked and warps it or bends it or anything minuscule, and it has to be a minuscule amount, it's going to affect it. So we'll flip that over now. I could do with having a block of wood to put on there, really. I don't want to put that flat on the ground. I want to go and get a block of wood, flip this over, and do exactly the same with the front one, and then we'll get on to re-greasing these new bearings, getting them back on the cab, and hopefully we'll be back on the road. Right, as you can see there, I've got the new bearing in the back all full of grease, and I've also tapped in the new seal on the back. That it literally just taps in with a hammer. Just put it on level, gradually work your way around it until it's flush with the rear of the hub. What I'll do whilst I'm showing you is I'll just show you what I did with the grease. Obviously I've not done the front bearing yet, so what we'll do actually is let me grab a bit of brake cleaner. I want to clean this back of this hub up around this ABS sensor and whatever else. We'll slot this on. I want to put a little bit more grease inside it, so I've put a load in there already, but I just want to put a load more in just so I can make double sure there's loads of grease in the middle of that hub there. I'll clean the back of this up, we'll slot that on, and I'll show the front bearing just how I used my palm of my hand with some grease and pushed all the grease through and packed it full of grease. So I'll show you that in a second. Let me just grab some brake clean, we'll clean that off, and then we'll do that, and then we should be pretty much back together again. Should be absolutely marvellous with any luck. Right, I've got our new bearing there, and I've actually just put a little bit of grease in it so I can show you. You can see there, those two little beads of grease, that's been pushed through from that side there. As you can see, there's all grease all around that side of it. That is what you're aiming for when you do it. So you get some of your grease, put it on the palm of your hand. I know this is a messy process, but it's the only way you can really do it unless you've got a special bearing greaser. And basically you just hold the bearing like that and push it through it until you see that little bit of grease come through this side. When you see that, then you know that it's packed full. See it coming through there now? You're in that with a load more little splurges coming through. You will obviously end up getting a little bit in the middle, which you just pull back out and put on your palm again, and you carry on working your way around it like that until the whole thing is full of grease, and then you know, in theory, that your bearing has got as much grease in as it possibly can have. See it all splurging out. Obviously around this side, I need to keep going round until I get all the way round and the whole thing's full. Right, I'm going to carry on doing this. Once it's packed full, we'll get it put back on the cab, and hopefully should have a nice quiet wheel bearing again with any luck, because it was driving me up the wall. Bang on 50 mile an hour, which is what the average speed is on the A13 in sections. And that is exactly where the resonant point was of this wheel bearing, making an absolute racket. So it was a bit annoying, to say the least. Not so bad when I'm in town, because obviously I was going a lot slower in town. You don't notice it, but when you're going in and out of town, it was horrible. So right, I'm going to do this, carry on with that, and then once I've done this, I'll come back to you. Okay, with that front bearing now full of grease, we can now get on our front washer and hub nut, which I've just realised I've put the washer down somewhere and I don't know where I've put it, which is not very helpful. I literally just cleaned it 2 seconds ago, ready for doing this, and now I don't know where I've put it. Story of my life, there it is. I cleaned up the other 2 bits and didn't clean up the washer. That's helpful, isn't it? So when you do this with the wheel bearing, it's a roller taper bearing, so It doesn't have mega amounts of tightness or anything on it or anything like that. It should only be done with your fingers, really. So this has obviously got a keyway cut in this front of this hub to match the keyway on the washer. That just goes on there like that. And then you obviously wind your nut on. A little bits of grit of it off of it. Don't want them going in the wheel bearing. And you'll get to a point where you can't do any more. About there. And at that point, if you spin the wheel bearing backwards, if you still can't get any more, then you should be alright. But having said that, I'm spinning that, it doesn't feel very nice. It doesn't feel very smooth. I can feel... That's because it's loose. So, in that case, what you do is get a big adjustable. Now that's obviously, this is obviously not tight, which is why it's making such a horrible feeling. Now I couldn't do that anymore with my fingers because obviously there's a bit of grit or something in the thread. So what you do is you do it up with this, so you can't do no more. Then back it off so it's loose, and then do it with your fingers whilst spinning the wheel backwards. That's forwards. Spin it backwards, Mike. And in theory, if you can't do it any tighter with your fingers, you should be able to look. If I see, you can see I'm doing it with my fingers. I'm not gone mega tight with it with any spanners or anything like that. You only use the spanner to get it at home, and then back it back off again and do it with your fingers. So I'm spinning that backwards now, trying to tighten that with my fingers only, and that is as tight as I can get it. And that's basically all you need. Now what stops it coming undone, I hear you ask? Well, that is where your castle cap with all little cutouts in it and your split pin come in. So obviously that sits over the top of the nut. Line it up as close as you can in one of these gaps with the hole that goes through the middle of the hub, and then you put your split pin through, and that is what holds it in the position that you've put it in. It's nice to give this a few spins either way whilst you're at this stage, just to make sure that everything sort of beds in a little bit, and obviously the grease is where it needs to be, and not sort of holding up anything as far as doing it up is concerned. So now if I check that again, I'm going to back that off my fingers again. See, I don't know if you can see it on camera, but if I show you, if I tighten that with my fingers, I can't get that any more than that now. If I go backwards on the hub, see it do it up a little bit more as I'm doing it, and that's what gives you the little extra bit. It's obviously bedding it in as you're tightening it with your fingers, only with your fingers though. So that is now tight. No play. Can't get any tighter with my fingertips, which is fine. So the hole goes through pretty much horizontal through there. So if we can get this so that it lines up, something like that. And then this should just go straight through. That is if it didn't have a little bend in the end of it from where I took it off. I mean, it probably still will go through, but I'll just get this bend out of it slightly so it's a bit easier to get through. It should. I need to get that, I need to bend that in so that it's a bit straight. I'll just get a pair of mole grips on it. Excuse me, leaning across the camera. So you want this as straight as you can because it aids it going through, and obviously then you just bend it back out again when you get to the other side. Right. Sometimes you can use a little pair of needle nose pliers and it will go through a little bit easier if you get a little bit of force. There you go, see? Straight through. Loads of grease on the end of it where it's obviously had grease in that hole. Stop it. Right. Now if you get a little flat bladed screwdriver, hold that in place and just open that out slightly to start with. That will obviously give you a gap then to be able to get a pair of pliers or whatever to bend the rest of it. You can see I've opened it up slightly. Now I haven't got my bigger pliers here unfortunately, but let's see if we can use these. Oh, no. That was a nice Chevy step-side truck just went past. I'm sure you heard that on camera. Bend it out a little bit. If we can get that a little bit more on the mole grips like that, there we go. Now you know it's definitely not going to come out then. And obviously it's sitting in well inside the outer edge of where the cap sits on, so it's not going to scrape or make any horrible noises or anything like that. Obviously it's worth feeling the bearing again. No playing it at all, dead quiet. I'm going to put a load more grease around the inside of here, a load more grease inside the cap, and that is job done on the bearing. I've just got to put the caliper back on, which is those two. They're actually 19mm bolts, not 17s like I said earlier. Two 19mm bolts hold the caliper on. I've already cleaned the disc with a little bit of brake cleaner to get all the grease and grime off of that. I've had my fingers all over it, my hands all over it, so that won't be a problem when we start braking, and we should be on to the next job. So I shall come back to you when this is back together. Okay, since doing that front wheel bearing, unfortunately the noise is still there, so it looks like it's going to be the dreaded rear wheel bearing on the cab. It is this side. When I turn the cab to the right and the weight leans to the left, it's still getting a lot worse when you go around a right hand bend or whatever else roundabout etc. So I can only assume it is that rear wheel bearing that has gone once again. Now that is not a particularly easy thing to do on the cab because you have to take the half shaft out and all the rear brakes and everything off to get to it. It is a right pain in the bum job. You will know if you watched my videos of old that I did do a rear wheel bearing on the cab without a press, and it was an absolute nightmare, and I ended up getting the garage to do the other side, which was the opposite side. This was the side that I did originally. The other side was the one that the garage did. Now the other side I've already replaced again since, and I've got a full-size press now, so it was a lot easier to do. However, because the TX4, which is what this cab is kind of like the dinosaur in London now, and obviously everything's going over to the new electric version, parts are getting a little bit hard to get on these now. So I've got a new rear wheel bearing for it, but I haven't got a new ABS ring. I've got one new collar which goes on with it, but I was hoping to use that on the other side because I've got a leaky rear wheel seal on the other side, which I was hoping that was going to be cured by replacing the collar and the seal. May have to use that on this side though, so time will tell on that side of things. So it's going to be a bit tricky because I'm going to have to try and get the rear half shaft out, get the old bearing off, then try and press off the old collar, and then reinstall all the new stuff with the old collar again if I can. It's not going to be the easiest thing in the world to do, but hopefully it will work all right. So the first thing to do is going to be getting all this stripped down. Now you've seen me do this, as I say, in previous videos, but I will go for it fairly quickly on this one to try and get this sort of done because I need this back on the road ASAP. As you can see, we are in the garage now. It is dark outside and I needed to get the cab inside so I could actually work on it without getting rained on or whatever else. So let's get set up, get that drum off, get all the brakes removed and everything else, shoes and whatever else, back plate, and well, actually no, the back plate comes off with the half shaft, and then we can see what sort of condition this bearing's in. Right, with the brake drum and shoes now off, I've got to get the pipe on the back of the wheel cylinder undone to obviously let that go free. And then we've got 6 bolts which are in here, you can see 1, 2, 3, and then the same the other side, 4, 5, 6 down the other side. There you probably can't see them because I've not got a light that side, but it's the same both sides. That then releases this plate and the back plate and there's a spacer in there as well, and then the bearing, and the whole thing comes out in one lump. As I say, it's a right pain, but it is doable. The hardest bit is obviously getting the bearing on and off. If you've got all new bits, you can cut the old one off and press the new one on very easily. But if you've got to reuse bits like I've got to try and do this time round, then it does become very, very tricky. So I'm gonna obviously get all this undone. I'll show you once I've pulled the half shaft out exactly what we've got, and hopefully this bearing sounds absolutely knackered once we get it off, because if it doesn't, I'm going to be a bit miffed that I've took it all apart for nothing. Let's crack on. And there we go, there is our half shaft out of the axle. Now it's very, as I say, very easy to take out. I'm just praying this bearing is bad, but it don't feel bad if I'm honest, which is slightly concerning, because I'm worried if I change this and it don't cure it, then what? Then I'm into probably prop shaft bearing or something of that description. But because it's sided and it gets so much worse when it's on this side, that's what's making me think that it's this. See, that just comes out like that. You're left with the whole assembly. I thought that would feel worse than that, if I'm honest. It doesn't feel bad, but it's obviously not got any weight on it at the moment, so it's only at certain speeds at the moment, so it's not got to the point where it's really bad, if that makes sense. Am I barking up the wrong tree here? That's the question. I don't know. Am I causing myself a lot of work for nothing by changing it? Again, I don't know. And I say the hardest bit now is, if I show you on here, this ABS ring is no longer available, and that goes onto this spacer, whatever you want to call it. What do they call it? It's not a shim. I can't think what they call it now, but anyway, it goes onto that from the back side, so I would have to try and get this bearing off to then be able to get something in the gap behind it to then push this whole thing off the half shaft, which is easier said than done. Obviously it's not going to be the easiest job in order to do that, so this could be an issue. I'm going to have a look at this for a minute and gather my thoughts, I think, and decide what I'm going to do, because it doesn't feel bad, but obviously at speed with weight on it as well, it could feel bad, or it could vibrate and make a noise. It doesn't feel as free as I thought it would, if that makes sense. Now I don't know what to do. Right, I'm going to have a think about this and come back to you in a minute. Right, I'm going to go with it being this rear wheel bearing for the simple reason of this. I've been looking at it, and as you can see, if I move this, there's a lot of play in that bearing. Now, I'm not sure how many miles this has done. I'll have to see if I can find it in the history of the cab, but that has got a lot of play in that, which you wouldn't be able to tell unless you actually took the half shaft out, because obviously it's inside that. It's fitted in there, pressed in, and it can't go anywhere. So you wouldn't be able to get any play in it, because obviously this end of the half shaft, let me zoom out, this end of the half shaft goes into another bearing inside the middle of the axle, so this end is supported, which means this one wouldn't be able to flex anyway like a normal wheel bearing would if it was on the front. So that is what I'm going with. I think that has had it, even though it doesn't feel bad when you turn it. So the next thing I've got to do now is try and work out how I'm going to get this off and save this, because I tried to get this off before when I did it the first time around and I ended up having to cut it off and get a new one. But I say the problem now is this ABS ring, which is separate to this sleeve, isn't available. I've got a sleeve, I've got a bearing, and I've got a new seal if I really wanted to change that seal in there as well. But I haven't got that ABS ring, and the main dealer hasn't got a date on them when they can get them next. So that is my biggest concern at the moment. I can't just cut that off because I can't get a new one. So that is the quandary I'm in at the moment. You can see I've got the new bearing here. It is a genuine bearing again. This was actually listed for a TX, early TX2 stroke TX4. I asked them if it was the same and they said yes, as long as you use the same sleeve and ABS ring. Because if you buy the complete kit now, it's only one place you can get it online I've found, which is 225 quid for one side, which is an unbelievable amount of money for a bearing and a sleeve. This sleeve from the main dealer is £6.50, and that ABS ring I think is similar. And this bearing I paid £65 for brand new, and it's in a genuine LTI stroke LEVC wrapper. So it is a genuine bearing, made in England. I don't know if that's good or not. So yeah, that's the quandary at the moment. I think I'm going to try and cut this off somehow without damaging that, and then that way I can get some sort of a support in behind this collar in the press and press this off, because it's only got to go off the half shaft gets bigger when it gets to this section here, so it's only got to come off to there and then it will just slide all the way off easy. So as long as I can get something in here to get underneath this sleeve and ABS ring to support it from the middle, so it's supported around the middle of it there, because obviously I don't just want to push on the ABS ring because it'll just snap it, then we should be in good shape to get that one back off and reuse it. But that is the quandary at the moment. So I'm going to ponder this for a minute, and when I've got an answer I'll come back to you. Right, call this modified, and so what my idea works with that ring off. I'm hoping that now I can get the drum to slide past this bearing. Yes, it does. That's good. That is exactly what I wanted. Right, there was no reason that had to be in one piece, I don't think, because it's only got 3 bolts either side, and that top section hangs over the top of this bit up here where there's nothing. So I think that'll be okay if that's just 2 pieces, which is why I've decided to cut that in half. That then gets me the drum off, gets me a lot more access to underneath the bearing just here, and obviously makes it a little bit easier to work on, and also means in the future if I wanted to I could actually take this out without taking the back plate of the brakes off, or at least undoing the brakes I should say. It might be easy to take it off, but at least I've got that option if I wanted to. Right, so now I've done that, I've now got to see if I can find something strong that can go underneath this bearing, and that I can support on the press, and maybe we might be able to push the whole thing off in one go. I'm not sure if that's going to work or not, but if it doesn't, then I can still cut this off a lot easier now with the drum not being in the way. Fortunately I can't get this plate off because it is a lot smaller hole in that one. But yeah, that's a little bit of progress. I wasn't sure whether I should do that or not, to be honest with you, but I've done it now, so that's done. And hopefully it'll aid us in the next step. So I'm just going to have a look at this again now and see what the next step will be, and as soon as I know I shall come back to you and tell you. Okay, what seemed like a couple of seconds for you was about an hour and a half for me. There is the carnage of the old bearing off, as you can see there, and we're left with the drive shaft or half shaft with the sleeve and the ABS ring on that gap. Now those cuts were done previously by me, I think. I'm trying to think, actually no, this side was the garage who did this side, so the garage probably did that because I was actually cutting it the opposite way on this occasion. Or was I? I don't know. Anyway, there's a couple of cuts in it. It doesn't matter. They're not going to make any difference whatsoever. They were fine before. So the next thing I've got to do now is try and get this somehow on a press, get something in between here so we can push this sleeve and ABS ring off in one go. That's the hope. It might need a little bit of heat to help it as well. We'll see how it goes. It's literally only got to push off effectively the distance of that up because it gets thinner when it gets up here because it just slides off till it gets to this point here and then you push it on the last little bit. So I'm going to take you over to the new, still unfinished workshop, and we'll get this in the press and see what we can do. Right, just show you what setup I've got here. I have not been able to use the proper thing for the press because it's too thick that way and I can't get the hub between it, if that makes sense. So I had to use 2 bits of angle iron, which I've just noticed are bending. Now I've got a little bit of pressure on it. So that's what I've got set up at the moment. I've got it clamped, a clamp there and a clamp there to hold those on. I'm just obviously going to try and push this with a bit more pressure, but before I do that, I'm going to introduce a little bit of heat to the scenario. Get the old blow torch on it, and hopefully it might let go. So that's going to be what I'm going to do. I'm going to heat this up, see if it comes off, and go from there. Right, we're going for plan B, folks, because me putting the angle iron in there instead of using the proper support was just bending and it wasn't getting anywhere near enough pressure on it to push that off. So you would have just seen I've heated up the ABS ring, which is a bit I really need to save, and I've dropped that off the bottom. And I'm going to have to cut off that sleeve, the same as I have every other time. And lucky enough I have got a new one of those sleeves that I was going to use on the other side of the cab because I've got a leaky wheel seal on the other side, and I thought it was because the sleeve wasn't central or it was warped in some way, but we're going to have to use it on this side for now just to keep the cab going. I'd much rather have a leaky wheel seal and a cab on the road than a non-leaky wheel seal and no wheel bearing. So I'm going to let this cool down now for a minute and then we'll get on that with an angle grinder, cut that sleeve off. The ABS ring is now clear of that and we can put that on the new sleeve once this one's off. Right, now that sleeve is cut off, I've got my nice new one here, which as I say I actually bought for the other side. We're going to obviously use it on this side now. The next thing we need to do is, now that this is obviously a cut off, cut it straight, that one, because obviously it was nothing either side of it, so that made things a little bit easier. We'll clean all this up, but before we do that I'm going to get this like that, and this ABS ring, which can now come off, need to heat up and obviously drop that onto there. Actually no, it does it. It actually goes straight on. That's weird. I'm not sure that should be like that. Interesting. I had to heat that up to get it off the old one, and on the new one it just fits on. So how does that even stay on there then? Slightly concerning. Right, this is what I've come up with. Basically I've just put 2 tack welds, one either side, and that holds that ABS ring solid to that sleeve. Nothing's going to touch it. It should be absolutely fine. So that is what I'm going with. That's all I can come up with. I've been to a couple or a bearing place and had them trying to match that ABS ring. No go. Well, actually they didn't do ABS rings, but they said that you'd have to have one specially made. So that's that basically. So that's what I'm left with now. That's all I can do. So I'm going to take the half shaft and the bearing and this, back over to the workshop, get it in the press, press those on. You've seen me do that before. I don't know if you've seen me do that before or not. I'll take the camera over there with me. It should be fairly easy to do, hopefully, because we're going to be using the proper framework that comes with the press rather than 2 bits of angle line when me trying to get the old ones off. And it should press on really easily, hopefully. So let's get over to the workshop and we'll come back to you in a second. Right, apologies for the lighting. Unfortunately, it's all I've got set up over at the moment, so it's how it is, unfortunately. As you can probably tell by my tone of voice, I hate working on this cab. But anyway, that's regardless. Right, there's a half shaft. We need to get the bearing on here first. So that's going to be going on with this raised side towards the hub, because this seal sits on the edge of the axle effectively to stop any oil getting out from the middle. So that slides over there like that. Should go down so far. And then obviously we need to get it in the press and supported around this central piece here, so that when you push on it, it is actually pushing on the centre race of the bearing rather than the outside, because otherwise obviously you're going to be pushing on the wrong bit and it will end up knackering the bearing. Yeah, so I need to get this set up in the press. I've got some big steel plates here which can go on there for extra support, and I've also got these 2 bits of metal which I actually cut a notch out of when I was trying to do it manually in the old garage, which those cutouts fit exactly around the diameter of this half shaft. Now the question now is, have I put this platform up too high to get this in here? I think I have. I may have to go down, one. Let's see. So you can yeah, can't get that in there with it like that. So I'm trying to think I did this before now. Whoops, there goes the bearing on the floor. Right, it's a bit fiddly this, but you can do it. Get that through there first, like that. Then get that back on the press. Do a funny angle. No, I think I'm going to have to lower that down. It's not going to work otherwise. Just move these pins down 1 notch. Like that. That allows that platform to sit lower. Put that back in again as it was. Stay there. Right. Now go in there like that. Now you could probably just use those, to be honest with you, to support it, but as I've got these already cut out and they're exactly the right size to go around it, I may as well use them. It's a bit of extra support, you know, because I know they go right to the centre of the half shaft. Now they are it is a bit wonky at the moment because these are a little bit bent, but as soon as I get some pressure on that, it'll obviously sort of flatten those out anyway. So just looking at if something I can put on there, like a big socket, so I haven't got to pump that down quite so far. Like that. Unfortunately, I've let that go right the way back up, so I'll have to pump that back down again. You obviously want to get this to be as up and down straight as you possibly can for ease of the bearing pushing on. It shouldn't, I mean, it'll obviously take some pressure, but it shouldn't take stupid amounts of pressure to push this in. It's going now. You can see I'm not putting in loads of pressure on this press, it's just fairly easy. I don't know how much tonnage it's pushing on it, because I haven't got the gauge set up on it, but you can see why I had to cut it off. Whoop. That's the sleeve I've got to put on. You can see why I had to cut the old one off, because it was proper on there. Right, that's it. That's all the way down. Make sure, give it a couple of little more pumps, but I can see it's all the way down, so I let that off. Let that go up a little bit. Now I may have to, yeah, I've got to take it back out again now to obviously get the, actually I might be able to slide it up with it in place. So now we've got to get our ABS ring on there, like that. Get that on top of there. Again, with these cutouts I've made on these bits of metal, it makes it a lot better because I know that it's supported right around the middle, like that. And I know it looks completely wonky, but as I say, once the pressure's on it, it should be all right. It shows you what a difference having a press makes to a job like this, because if I don't know if anyone who is watching this saw my original video of trying to do a rear wheel bearing on the cab. I really hurt my back trying to hammer it on and get the old one off and all the rest of it. It was just a really bad deal. I put myself out for about 3 or 4 days after I did that job. Now again, I'm not putting tons of pressure on this, it's just pushing it on. Another 5mm. There we go, it's on. And in theory it's as simple as that, assuming I've put that on the right way around. Probably not I have. Pretty sure I have. Right, set the pressure off that then. And that is those bits pushed back on, so now we've got to get back over to the garage and get all this fitted back on the cab and hope I've done it right. Right, we're back in the garage as you can see, and hopefully this is going to go in with no problem. Now I've got to put this backing plate back on there. Normally you wouldn't be able to take this off without taking the bearing off first, but because I cut this plate in half so I can put it in 2 halves, it allowed me to take this off. So that's got to go on that way round. That just fits over the bearing, and then we can get the half shaft back in, and then we can try and get these 2 little bits in position that I've cut in half, and hopefully I'll better line up again. So I'm going to leave the old seal in there because I'm going with the adage, the old adage or whatever the word is, that if it ain't broke, don't fix it. That's what I'm thinking, so let's hope I'm right in doing that. And I'm keeping my seal that I have got for the other side that I know is leaking. Right, so this has got to obviously slot in the axle end. You have to sort of lift it up and slot it in like that. And now I've got to try and line up. And this is going to be the tricky bit because I've cut this plate in half now. I've got to try and line up 6 holes. Yeah. Didn't think this through very well, did I? I cut it in half thinking it would be the easier solution. But now I'm not so sure. because I've got to get this so that it's bearings in the housing as such, which it is at the moment. It's not all the way home, but it is in there. Yeah, it is in there. So now, I've got to get that in front of the new bearing, but behind this drum. Usually it would just hang there. I may have made an error here and made a rod for my own back. And that's why it was on in one piece before, so it could just hang in there and do what it does until you need to put it in. I should be able to get them back in there. It's just going to take a little bit of finagling. Tell you what I'm going to get is a little bit of WD-40 to go around that seal, that edge of that bearing, so when it goes in, it's not going in without any lubrication. Got a hammer there, so that should be alright. I hope this gets rid of my noise, because if it don't, I'm not going to be very happy. Block of wood and a bigger hammer. That's usually what does it. Shouldn't take too much for it to. The thing I want to be careful of is, ouch, I can still get the, oh, I really hurt my knee. Still get the bits I need in the back of there to hold the bearing in. That really hurt. I just hit my knee right on that wheel stud. Right, somehow or another, all 6 bolts are in and started on the threads. No, they're not. I've only done 5. Let's put the 6th one in. Well, it's still a little bit loose. There we go. So I've obviously tapped that bearing in just enough to be able to get those started. So now I'm going to tap it the rest of the way home, and then we can do those bolts up. There you go, wasn't a lot. So now I'm going to buzz around, get those 6 bolts done up, put all the brakes back together, and then we should be, fingers crossed, okay with a new, I can't talk, okay with a new rear wheel bearing, and just hope it's cured my noise. If it hasn't, and I've done all this for nothing, I'm going to be really miffed. Right, let's put you on a bit of time lapse to get all this put back together. Right, to say that I'm a bit miffed is the understatement of the year. I've done all that work and the noise is still there on the cab, so I don't know what to do about that at the moment. It is totally baffling me why I've got a bearing noise when I've replaced both near side bearings, and when you turn to the right and the weight shifts to the left, it should be that side because it gets louder. The only thing I can think of is it's the bearing on the rear axle on the inner, on the diff end. It's the only thing I can think of, which I don't really fancy doing on the driveway, to be honest with you. So I may have to get a garage to look at that and see what they can do. But in the meantime, we're going to move on to another job which needs doing, which is in this footwell. A little while ago we did this job once already. As usual with the cab, it's gone again, so we have to change it again, and that is the heater valve that's in here. Now this has already been obviously out before, and this panel's already been snapped before, so it does make it actually a little bit easier to do, because rather than having to take this whole side panel out and undo these two screws at the top here, and it just flaps down because it's got a break in the plastic there. That's the heater valve we need to change. As you can see on there, if I get you in close, it's all wet around the bottom of it. It's been leaking coolant yet again. I don't know whether it's the same reason as last time, where the pieces that go inside the hoses have snapped, or whether it's because the valve has failed. I really don't know. All I know is it's leaking and it's giving me the ump, because I've done this job once, not that long ago really, and I need to do it again now. So I'm hoping it's just going to be a case of undoing those two Jubilee clips, and obviously popping those two pipes off, swapping it over for a nice new one. Now this one came off of eBay. It's the only place I can get them now. That one came from a main dealer, and it was the last one they had, and they are absolutely identical. So it just shows you that the main dealer part is basically Chinese junk, the same as everything else on this cab, because this cab, although it was assembled in Coventry, if I zoom in on a little label up there, you can see all the Chinese writing on the label, and that is everything on this cab, the whole lot. Everything made on this cab is in China, whether it be from factory or whether it be aftermarket or whatever else, and it is all completely, absolutely and utterly useless. Can you tell that I'm not particularly happy with this cab at the moment? Probably can tell from the tone of my voice. There have been conversations going backwards and forwards between me and my dad about changing it for a new electric one, or a second-hand electric one I should say, which I don't want to do because I don't like electric cars at all. But it's all you're allowed to have as a new cab, or a newer cab now. There is nothing newer that you can get except for the electric one, which has got a range extender engine in it, so that obviously makes it a little bit better. So you haven't got to solely rely on the electric. If you do run out of juice, you've got the electric, you've got the petrol backup. So that is the one good thing about it. But it only does about 70 miles on a you can see that leaking out of there. Look, it's all coming out the side of that valve. Just moved it. There you go. It's dripping there. Look at that. So as soon as this adjusts for hot or cold, when you have it on cold, it seems to seal up. When you have it on hot, it all leaks out. You can actually see that dripping quite badly there. It's a good job I haven't had the heater on, isn't it? So I'm going to go and grab a pot so I don't get coolant over the floor in here, and we'll swap this out and hopefully that'll cure it. Right, with that fitted and coolant absolutely everywhere, which I didn't really want. I've been trying to dry the carpet out, as you can see. Let's start the cab up and see if it leaks. Now if I turn the heater dial, it should move. There you go. Get the blower going as well. It's carpet is absolutely soaked. I don't know if that's because of what I've just dripped onto it or whether it's because it's been leaking for a little while or what, but I kept getting a waft of antifreeze in here. And I put the heater on and I thought, I know what that is, because I changed it before. It's not a hard thing to change, but obviously making a mess after or during is the issue. And it doesn't look like it's leaking. I'll turn that now. Looks like we're all good. That's on full heat now. Where's the heater blower? Oh, it's because I've not got it on feet, that's why. There we go. Comes out up there. Let's just cycle it a couple of times to make sure. I just want to make sure that's tight as well. It doesn't look very tight, that. Yeah, it's tight. So it can't be too tight, otherwise it won't rotate. Looks like we're alright on that. Concerned about that rubbing on that clip. Bend that in slightly just to make sure it's not rubbing. Don't think it is, but no, it's not touching. That's okay. It's coming off already. It's a good start, isn't it? Like I said, Chinese junk. But as long as it carries on not leaking, that's the main thing. I don't want to be losing coolant or having the smell while I'm out in the cab. So, right, with the heater valve now done and seemingly not leaking anymore, we can turn our attention to this window switch. Now, my driver's side window, for whatever reason, has left the chat, shall we say. I'll see you in a second when I get this out. The top's completely come off of it, so this just pops out as a whole unit, luckily. I haven't got to take the door card off, as long as you're careful. As long as you're careful with it, I was just about to say. There we go. And these are in two halves, so you can slide them apart. They're on like a bracket. They are very fiddly. Probably better off getting the... Oh, there you go. Then the plug, you just squeeze the ends in, and it pops out like that. Simple as that. Now the new one has actually come out the bracket, but obviously we need it in the bracket, so let's put that in there. It just clicks in like that. Put our ignition on. The window on this side is a bit slow, but I can't remember whether they're one touch up and down or just down. That's really strange. How can I not remember that after being here for so long? I think they're only one touch down. Anyway, it works. So that is another job ticked off the list as my camera starts talking to us. And that just clicks in there like that. There we go. Lovely. Top banana. Right. Next job on the old cab. Tried to go to work last night and got greeted with a plume of steam as I was sitting in a bit of traffic. And this bottle, they're prone for going. You can probably just about see it if I zoom in. Hang on. Move it down. There's a split right down the side there. Now it actually hasn't lost as much coolant as I thought. The coolant's only down to there, but when I opened the bonnet there was a stream of jet spraying through the crack because it was obviously under pressure, all going over the engine, and it was making an absolute plume of steam everywhere. Which obviously isn't particularly good if you're going to be carrying passengers, so I had to turn around and come back home again. So there we go. So right, this is actually off of a Mark 1 Ford Focus. You've got these two overflow pipes up here, or return pipes, which you have to take off. This is just obviously a case of undoing the two Jubilee clips, and hopefully they'll come off. They've been on there a little while. This bottle's lasted longer than a lot of them. I've had about 4 or 5 of these bottles on this cab now. Right, that's those two off. And the trick is with this is one 10mm nut on here, and there's like a pronged clip on this side. So if you undo the nut, sorry, bolt I should say, like that, that's all it is. Now usually you could just lift this off, but I tend to bend these prongs over because otherwise the back bottle rattles, and I hate rattles, so I bend them over just so it's got a bit of extra to hold it in. Not a lot. And that should allow you to lift that up and winkle it off of it. It's only good, whatever that was just went past. Bend those up like that and it should just lift off. There you go. Right, and now you've got that off, you can actually undo this other hose, get the coolant that's left in there up this end, undo that other hose, and you shouldn't lose too much coolant out of it. In fact, before I do that, let me get the new bottle out and ready. Don't get a cap with the new bottle, but I don't need a cap, so that's alright. I've got a genuine full one on there because the full ones tend to last a bit longer. I used to get the genuine full bottles as well, but they don't seem to make them anymore now, so you can see that's the same. Nice new bottle. This is one's made by Starline, it's just from Euro Car Parts. So I just put in, funny enough, my stepmum's old Ford Focus registration number, and it came up. So that was quite handy. So yeah, just undo that, obviously Jubilee clip on this bottom corner. Like that. Give it a little twist so that it breaks the seal. And if you keep the tank up this end, shouldn't in theory lose too much coolant. But I am losing it out this other hose now for some reason. Why is it doing that? It's because it's letting a bit of air into the system and it's letting it come out. So what I'm going to do then, I'm going to put these two hoses on the new one to stop them leaking everywhere. And then we'll swap the other one over quickly and get the angle on it. Put them on there like that, and we'll swap the other one over quickly. Now it's loose. Hopefully that should stop it going everywhere any more than it already has. Keep that one up that way like that. Keep this up as high as you can, and then you get it on there. And you don't lose any coolant. There you go. Right. Let's do our clamps back up again before we forget. I'm not too mental with it because it's only on plastic. I can actually, I'm just going to get a rag and wipe that bracket of all the old antifreeze off of it. Right, I'll get that clip back in and I can do up those other two hoses properly then. Now I've done that clamp up, but it's at the wrong angle for the bottle, so let's just loosen that off a bit so it can twist. We'll get the bottle in place, then we'll do the clamp up. That's better. A fiddly clip over. Because this one's nice and new, it's a bit tighter than the other one. When I've got that off, I'll bend these a bit straighter so I can get it in there a bit easier. There we go. Get our bolt back in. Don't want to go too mad with that because it's only on plastic. Right, now we can clamp our hoses up. Okay. Got a little wipe put its drip down. I want to try and get it dry so I know that the new one's not leaking when I start the cab engine up, and I know it's alright. Clip that back together. Why is that dripping? And now we can just tip our coolant out of this one into this one. It has got different chambers inside this bottle, so it is sometimes a little bit difficult to get all the old stuff out, but I think I've got it all. I've also now got a drip from the bottom. Why is that dripping? I've done that up as tight as I dare. Why is it dripping? See what I mean by the end of that now, being so crushed in. It's just not sealing. What should have been an easy job is now turned into a pain. I don't understand for the life of me why this is leaking. I don't want to cut too much off the end of it because I'm not sure there's enough bend left on it to do it. I may have already done this once already, I can't remember. Let's actually get a knife that cuts, shall we? It appears we're leak free. I'm going to put that back up to maximum again, run the cab up, get it under pressure and see what happens. Right, I've had this running for about 10-15 minutes now and it appears to be leak free. Appears to be, so that's good. I put a new clip on this top hose up here because the old one, when I tightened it up for about the millionth time, let go. Lucky I had one of those in the drawer, so that was quite good. So that's a new clip on that one. This one seems to be okay. That one was already fairly new from when I think I did it last time. Obviously I cut the small amount off the end of that hose. I didn't go mad with it because I didn't want to lose too much of the hose. Just trying to find the bit that I cut off to show you, but I can't see it at the moment. Oh, there it is. That's what I cut off. Not a lot. I think it was just that end that was a bit wafty. So you can see it's like a little funny little lump in it there. I think that was where it was seeping out. So that's obviously seems to be okay now, so that's that job ticked off the list. Hot banana. Right, I didn't want to be beaten about this wheel bearing. I'm still convinced it's this front wheel bearing. After changing all that on the back, I'm pretty certain it's still the front, even though I've replaced it. I've just taken it all back apart again. I've had a look at the bearings. They look okay-ish, but I think I may have found one smoking gun. Look at this race. Hopefully you can see that on camera if I get that bit of grease out of the way. Look at all those marks in the race. It's on the rear big bearing, so I can only assume that there's some sort of defect in that and it's worn, like, or something's happened to it. I'm pretty certain I didn't do it when I installed it. I'm pretty certain I didn't, but that's got to be the noise, surely. It's just got to be. I couldn't see anything on the front one, which is weird, because I thought if it was going to be any one of them, it would have been the front one, because the weight, when you turn right, the weight comes to the left, which pushes on this, or does it? No, it doesn't. It pushes on the inner bearing, which would make sense why it gets noisier when the weight's pushed this way, because it's pushing on the inner bearing. Yeah. So I'm almost convinced that's it. Almost convinced. I still had an inkling it was this bearing. My old mate Dan actually suggested this to me in the very beginning. He said, "Are you sure it's not a bad bearing out the box?" I said, "Nah, surely not." But there we are. So I've got a new pair of bearings. Again, another new pair, but a different make. These ones supposedly were Koyo. These ones are NTN. So I'm gonna faff about with this, change it all back over again, and at the end of the video I'll let you know whether it's actually cured it or not this time round. Right, it is another day and we are back out on the cab again, as you can see. Now, I did that bearing again on the other side the other day, as you would have seen, and that has not cured the bearing problem. So it's definitely not the near side front wheel bearing, because I've now done that twice. I've done the near side rear wheel bearing, it's not that. So we are actually on the off side at the moment, but I'm not changing the bearing. I noticed the other day when I was out looking at the other side again that the front discs and pads are absolutely clapped. And someone did mention to me that it could be actually the discs having a resonance point and making a noise at certain speeds because of their age or thickness, or thinness I should say. So to that end, I've got a new set of discs and pads to go on it. They are pretty lipped, and you can also see there's a big heat spot in them. And you can actually see, you can actually feel that isn't flat anymore. So I'm kind of hoping that there might be some sort of truth in this thing, that it could be the disc actually making a resonant point when I'm driving along, and rather than the bearing. I'm sceptical on it, if I'm honest, but they need changing anyway, so let's change the discs and pads. I don't want to change everything in one go, because then I won't know what's not cured it, or what's cured it I should say. So I'm not changing the bearing on this side again yet or anything like that. We will have to take that out though, because you have to take the whole hub off to get to the discs. They bolt on from the back with, I think, 6 Allen headed bolts. So let me get all this off. You've seen me take the hub off this about 1 billion times now, doing bearings and whatever else, and I'll just cut to where we've obviously got it off, and I'll show you how the disc comes apart. We'll get it in the vise in the garden, swap that over with a new one, obviously change the pads. You've seen me do pads on this before as well, so I'm not going to go into too much detail on this. If you do want to see a more detailed video on the cab brakes, there are other videos on the channel where I've gone into a bit more detail just doing the brakes on their own. So I'm kind of glossing over things a little bit on this video, but obviously there's a lot of different things that we've done in this video, so I don't want it to be too long, and a lot of the stuff you've already seen before. So let me get this off and we'll go from there. Right, there we go with the hub and disc in the vise. You can see the 6 Allen headed bolts that hold the disc onto the back of the hub. I have already loosened them off with a breaker bar, so now it's just going to be a case of buzzing these out, and hopefully this should come apart with no issues of any luck. And then I'm going to lose every single bolt on the grass. Hopefully not. Right, now they're undone with a couple of little taps on this hub. It should pop off, just like that. There you go, and you're left with your hub and obviously your old disc. Now I've got the same discs again. They're these MEC-TEC ones that have got this special primer on them, so they've got no oil on them. You haven't got to clean them. The pad just wears where it needs to wear to obviously scrape off that primer, and it kind of helps the disc last a little bit longer. These have rusted significantly less than the last pair of discs I had on this cab, so I think that does actually work to a point. So I'm going to grab a wire brush and a drill, clean up around this sort of hub section in the middle there, just so it goes on a little bit easier. It's a complete reverse of what I've just done. Unbolting that and bolting it on. I think they were definitely due to be changed. They look quite thin. I don't know, the minimum thickness it says on the new one is 22 mil, so I'll have to try and measure this. If I grind the lip off one section, I can put the caliper around it and we'll see what thickness they're at, see how far down I've run them, and how far down I've taken them past where they should be. Right, I'm going to go and grab a wire brush, as I say, sort that out, we'll put it back together again and crack on and do the other side as well. Obviously new pads going on too in a minute. Right, now we've got the caliper back on and the hub and everything back on. We can now go about fitting our new brakes. These are Ball & Beck, same make as the discs. Don't know how good they are. I've never used I've used the discs before, I've never used the pads before. Don't think. I bought them separately before and got the separate. Yeah, you know what I'm trying to say. Separate discs separately to the pads. Right, now I've just noticed on this I've actually got four what do I call it, plates, sound deadening plates on these. I don't need four, I should only have two. So I've got these little tabs on the outsides of which I've actually bent out. So we need to obviously, don't necessarily need them on there, but I'm going to put them back on there just because all the other pads I've ever had have had them on there. So I'm just going to squeeze them back down again so that they're meeting the top of the pad. I always put copper grease on the back of my pads. There's arguments to say you don't have to do any that and the other, but whenever I haven't, I've always had brake squeal. And the Alpha is proof of that, because the Alpha has had new brakes on it before I bought it, and they squeal like crazy, which means I'm going to have to take them off again and copper grease the pads. So, to my mind, it don't do any harm, and it always seems to help whenever I've done it. So, that's what I'm going to do. So I've got the tabs bent down on there now, so that's holding that a bit tighter on there, and obviously once it's in the caliper it can't go anywhere anyway. Now just put a nice smear of that over the back of it. Personal preference, I know, but this is just what I've... let's put a bit underneath it as well, just to really stick that to that. Yeah, personal preference, I know, and it's just always what I've done, what I was taught originally, and I think my dad taught me this originally. So, and especially on some of the old cars I work on, they don't always have, I mean actually these pads haven't got the anti-squeal pad on the back of them, so make of that what you will. Right, these go in really easy now. I've pushed the caliper back, they should just slide in there like that, no problem at all. Do the same with the other one. Find the other anti-squeal pad wherever it's just disappeared to, because obviously I put it down and now it's disappeared into the face of off the face of the planet. I've got two of those. Where's the other one? There it is. Right, I'll stick that on there the same. Grease on my fingers. I'll bend those down again. Haven't got to be perfect, just so it holds them on there a little bit. Slather of grease on the back of that. And hopefully, well, it's going to improve the cab because obviously it's got new brakes on it, but whether it improves this noise I've got, yeah, I'm still not sure on that, to be honest with you, but still. Right, there we go. That can slide in there. I'm going to move that around to a clean bit of disc, and I'm going to clean that bit that was inside the caliper because it was a bit manky. I've cleaned it already about 3 times, but so they just go in there like that. You've got these little, let me wipe my fingers again. These little spring clips. The short end goes to the edge of the caliper. They just go in there. And then you've got your split pin which goes through the caliper. Over the top of that, it's got like a groove it sits in. So just make sure you get it in the groove. Oh. It's got to go through the hole on the other side, and then obviously bend the ends out so that it doesn't fall out while you're driving. Right, I'm going to have to flatten that out a bit because it's got a bit of a, what do I call it? Some pads that you buy, you get new ones of these split pins with them, and new ones of those little springy bits, but some you don't, and these ones haven't, so we'll have to reuse the ones we got. I've got other older ones that I've kept in the garage. You knew that already because they are such a hoarder. But yeah, so if I ever do need any, there we go, straight through like that. Bend the end out. Sorry, I know I keep knocking the camera, but it's balanced next to me on a tub of brake cleaner of all things. Start it off with a pair of needle nose and then get a bit more of a substantial pair of pliers around it, and then you can bend them out a little bit better. I don't like these pliers. They don't really lock. Weird as that sounds, they're not my mole grips. They're just like, I don't know what they are to be honest with you, but they're weird. So we'll get a little bar in there and just bend that out. There we go. That's it. That's one in. So if you weren't doing discs and pads, if you weren't doing discs, you could literally just take the wheel off, take these little springy split pins and little springy plates out, slide your pads out, assuming you can get the pistons to go back in on the caliper all right, then you should just change them easy, and it should just be a very, very simple job for you. Which is kind of nice if you're not doing discs. Obviously if you're doing discs you have to take the whole hub off, which is a pain, but obviously kind of easy both ways. So it's proving a little bit troublesome that one to go in for some reason. I don't know why. Sometimes a little tap helps. Or not. Why is it not going in? Not quite lined up right with the hole. Come on. Why is it whenever you need a hammer, you've left it in a completely different place where you're not at? Oh, I know what I've done. The split pin actually went both sides of that clip, so it was splitting it apart. The springy bit rather, I should say. Right, that's better. We're both on the right side now. There we go. Not very easy that time because I had it round the right way. There we go. That's that bent out. Can't go nowhere. Your pad's just floating there like that. It should be all absolutely marvellous. So now I've basically got to do exactly the same thing on the other side. Let me clean that disc up before it goes underneath that caliper and makes all the brake pads manky. I've got to move you to do it, so because you're on the brake cleaner. So I'm going to clean that disc up. That's this side back together, get the other side done, and we should be back on the road. So, the last job on the cab, those front brake discs and pads, did they cure the noise, do you think? Well, I was very sceptical. As I said in the video, I thought, no way, never in a million years. Well, I'm very, very pleased to say they actually have cured the noise. I'm baffled by that, I don't know why. I do still have a noise, but it's not the same noise, and it's the noise I've got left with, which is a vibration I've had for a long, long time, and I'm pretty sure that's the prop shaft bearing. So, the bearing noise that I had, which was getting louder and louder every time I drove the cab, has actually now been cured after all that work of doing the bearings, but front and back, front twice, back once. It turned out to be discs and pads. How about that? I would never have thought that in a million years, but there we go. So the noise is gone on the cab, thank goodness. Now, because of that noise and me chasing it for so long, there was a couple of jobs at the beginning of the video that I mentioned, taking the fuel tank out and fixing that leak when I fill it up too high. It does tend to dribble out the side a little bit. I haven't had a chance to do that yet. Wiper blades I've actually done off camera. They're pretty self-explanatory. They're just a retrofit flat blade. We've got a hook arm on the cab, and the Bosch blades that I get there, the Aero twin flat blades, they've got like a little flap on them. You just open the little flap up, hook them on like you would normally with a normal hook blade, and then just click the flap back down again and it locks them on. They're really, really good. I have used them for a long, long time. So they have been done as well, but off camera, unfortunately. So at least that job's done too. That was an absolute marathon on that cab. As I said in my last week's video when I was working on the workshop, that's what slowed me down. This video has been filmed over probably a good 2 to 3 weeks of me just battling different things on the cab. I'm pleased to say at the moment, I'm going to touch some wood. Where's some wood? Here we go. Touch wood. It's all right at the moment, so there we go. If you did like this video, there's actually 5 things you can do for me now. If you haven't subscribed already, if you hit the subscribe button, that would be absolutely mega. Only about 20% of my viewers are actually subscribed to the channel, so if you could hit the subscribe button, that would be absolutely superb, and I really do appreciate it. Obviously, like the video as well, share it with all your friends and family, whoever you think may enjoy the video. I'm trying to think of all the different things now because I usually say them in a certain order and I can't think of them all now. Like, subscribe, share. Oh, share, yeah, like, subscribe and share. Those 3 things. Hit the notification bell if you want to be told about future uploads on my channel. And there's a 5th thing you can do now, the hype button. If you can hype my videos and make sure that more people get to see them, then obviously it makes the channel grow a little bit quicker as well. So that would be absolutely superb. I appreciate this has been a mega long video. As I say, a total marathon. I wasn't planning on it being this long a video, but as you would have seen from what I've had to do to the cab over the last few weeks, it has been a bit of a nightmare. So I just put it all into one video. I thought some of the jobs you've already seen me do before anyway, so I didn't go into too much detail. If you do want to see more detailed videos on the rear wheel bearing or on the brakes or on the front wheel bearing for that matter, there are separate videos I've done in the past, sort of concentrating on those things. So if you want to look back at my playlist on the taxi, you'll see those on there too. All that's left for me to say is thank you very much for watching. I'm not sure what I'm going to be doing in the next video. I'm hoping this space that you can't really see in front of me is going to have the alpha in here soon, and we're going to be cracking on with that. So with any luck, the next video may be an alpha video. If not, it's going to be carrying on with the workshop, one of the 2. I really need, after looking at that edit of me working on that vice out there on the decking and it wobbling all over the place with me hammering it, I really need to get the workshop sorted out and get that vice mounted in the workshop rather than it being outside in all the weather. Anyway, I digress. Thank you very, very much for watching. And if you do want to join me soon for more automotive adventures, I will see you again next time. Cheers, guys.